Well, all hell is breaking loose in the state of Minnesota right now, and specifically Minneapolis, where Tim Walz resides and governs. Well, aside from all the fraud junk that is going on right now, there's something else major that happened, and that is the fact that a young woman, or dramatic footage, shows a young woman being shot by ICE agents. She was in an SUV, and according to feds, she was trying to run over the ICE officer. Of course, this has sparked the, shall I say, George Floyd moment on the left, and now all hell is breaking out. Protest, flag burning, the whole 9 yards. The left is going nuts, and because the politicians out there are feeding this frenzy. I honestly believe they are trying to start something in this country. If you get my drift, I've got so much to share with you today. Not only that, but quite frankly, Tim Walz should be running for cover after the young woman who got shot's wife came out and made a particular statement that I think could hint at, admission or something to the effect of, I guess I'll ultimately let you be the decision factor on that. But I've got a lot to share with you, and not a lot of people have covered that particular thing. But take a look. This is on NY Post. Dramatic footage shows ICE agent in Minneapolis shoot and kill a woman as feds say she tried to run down an officer with her car. Now, I'm not going to get into all the footage. You guys have probably seen it. It's too dramatic. But basically, I'm going to show you one still shot. You can see the police officer right there in the front, right in front of the car. And then you can see my arrow pointing on the bottom here to the wheel. The wheel is facing exactly at the police officer. At one point in the video, the wheel is to the side and she faces it to the police officer. In my opinion, right, and I'm not an agent or anything, that would be using a car as a deadly weapon. Okay, so this is what went down. And look, my heart goes out to everyone impacted by that. For the young lady, her family, she was a mother of 3 kids, I believe. My heart goes out to her and her wife and all of that. My prayers to you, and my prayers also go out to the ICE agents who got impacted by all this and who probably are going to be Derek Chauvin in the future. And I really hope to God that's not the case, especially considering everything that's going on. So my heart goes out to them as well. I never want anyone hurt in any way, shape, or form. But this was put out by Homeland Security. And basically they said they were conducting operations there when rioters began blocking ICE officials, right? And things got violent. And one of these rioters, violent rioters, weaponized her vehicles and attempted to run over our law enforcement officers in an attempt to kill them, an act, they say, of terrorism. An ICE officer, fearing for his life and the life of his fellow law enforcement officers and the safety of the public, fired defensive shot. He used his training to save lives. The alleged perpetrator was hit and is now deceased. The ICE officers who were hurt are expected to make full recoveries. Obviously, this is an evolving situation and ongoing, right? But then they also make this statement, which I think is important. This is a direct consequence of constant attacks and demonization of our officers by sanctuary politicians who fuel and encourage rampant assaults on our law enforcement, who are facing 1,300% increase of assaults against them and an 8,000% death threat increase. This is absolutely insane. And look, let me put it this way, right? It's very tragic that the woman lost her life. My heart goes out to her. But I believe, right, this is in part because of radical leftist ideology that she consumed, right? I bet she was inundated by the mainstream media, her governors, her officials, maybe her leftist radical friends. They told her over and over and over again, and I'm theorizing, right? They told her over and over again that ICE is bad. They are acting just like the Nazi regime. ICE is Nazis. They're evil. They're xenophobic. They're bad people. And maybe that's why she decided to become some kind of vigilante and, be a hero in her mind, because she's constantly inundated with this kind of stuff, right? Which she absolutely wasn't. You can't use your car as a weapon. But either way, imagine being told for an entire year over and over and over again that is the case, that ICE is rounding up people of color and sending them to camps, even concentration camps. Wouldn't you think you're doing something heroic if you were that woman? She genuinely potentially believed that. And it's insane, because this is what the mainstream media is feeding her. This is why these lies that they're telling people need to be brought to the surface. She truly believed she was standing against evil, when in reality, she is highly deceived. ICE has been doing what they've always done for years. And now it's almost as if the mainstream media is weaponizing people against ICE. Will they ever learn? I don't know. But it's absolutely terrifying. But speaking of all of that, one thing that should worry the left at least a little bit, nobody's talking about, at least in my opinion, right, is this. Take a look at this. And this is on the Daily Mail. And it's wife of ICE shooting victim says, and here it is, I made her come down here to confront agents as she broke down in harrowing footage. And this is the young woman that was the victim named there. But the grieving wife of a woman shot dead by immigration and custom enforcement agents in Minnesota broke down in tears and blamed herself for the tragedy. Harrowing footage from the scene showed the unidentified woman in tears over the shooting death of 37-year-old poet Renee Nicole Good, as she admitted encouraging her spouse to confront agents. I made her come down here. It's my fault. She could be heard saying at one point through tears, they just shot my wife. Horrid situation. Again, I can't stress that enough. But apparently she was told to come down there to confront ICE. I think that very clearly at least has some admission of what they were doing there. Right? And a lot of people miss that. So what does Minnesota do? What does the city of Minnesota put out regarding all of this? Here's what they said. We are aware of the shooting involving the federal agents at 34th Street and Portland. We are working to confirm additional information. We're still waiting on that. But what is known is that the presence of federal immigration enforcement agents is causing chaos in our city and making our community less safe. See how they immediately go to blame ICE. And here's Mr. Walz. I cannot stand this guy. I've seen the video. Don't believe this propaganda machine. The state will ensure there is full, fair, and expeditious investigation and accountability and justice. And that he's putting in response to Homeland Security's response of what happened. So he's saying, I saw the video. I'm going to make my own opinion, and here's where I'm going to stand. But speaking of the stance of this rebellious little man, I want you to hear what he says here, because he literally says that Minnesota is at war with the federal government. Take a listen.
Well, I said this yesterday. We've never been at war with our federal government.
We've never been at war with our federal government. Literally, that is admitting we're at war. I'm just going to play that again so you can rehear it.
Well, I said this yesterday. We've never been at war with our federal government.
In other words, we are at war with our federal government. He literally admitted that. And actually, he goes on to expand a little more. Take a listen to what he says here.
Order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community. They're business owners. They're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait.
Ooh, those are fighting words. And you know what? Actually, I'm going to keep this up for a minute, because here's the deal. Tim Walz just literally threatened to mobilize the National Guard against the federal government. What is that called? Well, I love the reader context that got added right here, because they're absolutely right. As Governor Tim Walz, he can deploy his National Guard for a variety of reasons. But the Constitution Supremacy Clause prohibits use of force by a state for purposes of thwarting or defeating federal law, which is properly defined as a rebellion. There is really no other way to word that. There is a rebellion happening. And Tim Walz is right at the center. Maybe he's ticked off because a lot of that fraud just got discovered and he's about to get in a whole hell of a lot of trouble. So, hey, why not ignite this internal war on ICE? It's almost as if Tim Walz has his own little motive for this that goes way deeper than anything that's going on. And it seems like he's trying to incite his side to act. Oh, he's not the only one. I'm sorry. Tim Walz, it really pisses me off. I'm trying to make this short and sweet without, stating the obvious, if you will. But you get my drift. But he's not the only one that said. I want you to listen what the mayor of Minneapolis, where all hell is breaking out, said regarding ICE. I just want you to hear it.
But I do have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart. Long-term Minneapolis residents that have contributed so greatly to our city, to our culture, to our economy are being...
I'm done. I'm done listening to this a-hole. Anyway, he says, get the F... ICE, take the message, get the F out. And he's the mayor of Minneapolis. Hey, maybe him and Walz, obviously, they're all in on this together. But here's what he said regarding the shooting. I'm aware of the shooting involving ICE agents, blah, blah, blah. The presence of the federal immigration enforcement agents is causing chaos in our city. We demand that they leave the city immediately. In other words, ICE is not allowed to do their job in Minnesota and get rid of illegals who are here illegally. You know what? I would cut all funding, all federal funding to the state of Minnesota, because there is an absolute rebellion going on in that state. That's what I would do if I was Donald J. Trump. But speaking of Donald J. Trump, he did put out a message regarding this entire thing. And basically he says he watched the video. It's horrible. Obviously, he calls her a professional agitator, and the woman the car was driving was very disorderly, obstructing, and then violently, willfully ran over the ICE officer who shot her in self-defense. And basically, he's like, ICE is doing everything they can to make Americans safe. I don't want to read the whole thing. It's tedious, but you can get there and read it. But basically, obviously, he's on the side of the American people and ICE, right? I think there's a big movement within the Democrats because they're losing. They're losing their base. They're losing their voting base, and they're getting desperate. They're losing a lot of the finances a lot of the funding for their protests and whatnot. Even I think the protests that are happening right now, I do believe that they're going to get bigger, but it's taking all of their radical left network to do all that. But of course, leftists have already engaged in protests. Take a look. Daily Mail, Minneapolis in chaos as protesters clash with riot cops, while Trump says ICE victim Renee Nicole Good behaved horribly. Live updates. But here's the pictures of some of what's going on there with ICE officials. And here's the video, right? I want to show you because they're
Bob, I want to jump in here.
Burning the American flag here. This is some of the protesters showing violent acts. Why would you burn the American flag? What does that have to do with anything? And these people are very anti-America. The flag had nothing to do with the issue and the situation that went on, but they're already doing radical things, right? You could see there. And there's another one here, and this is them breaking windows, knocking on ICE's door. ICE out now, ICE out now. And they're actually smashing windows. You can see here in a little bit that they've smashed the windows. You can see it kind of in the corner there, that it's broken. But this is the kind of protests that are already breaking out across the country, right? It's just absolutely insanity. And that's the thing. Right now, we have the radical left, and the left radicalizing people. I mean, imagine being so brainwashed, like I believe, my opinion, that woman was. I believe the woman really thought she was being a vigilante because that is what she's been told. And that terrifies me. That's why we have an 8,000% increase in death threats towards ICE and a 1,300% increase of actual threats against ICE officials. And believe me, it is going to spread to everyone who supports ICE too. Because if you've radicalized someone enough to believe that something is happening, they take acts to think they're saving the world. Like, there's some kind of Anne Frank, if you will, right, during Nazi Germany, or many of the other people. And this is what I think we really have to hit home to the forefront, because these are troubling times. And the fact of the matter is we have to start getting truth out, because the mainstream media is not on our side, folks. All the stories out there on the mainstream media are calling her not a bystander, but by they have a term for it. Basically a bystander who was doing activist work. And that's it. The label that they give it is just insanity. Anyhow, I can't wait to read your comments and concerns. I love you all. I'm Lisa Haven signing out.